What's up, fellas? What's the catch? Well, today I want to talk about my favorite baits to target big fish coming out of winter, what I like to use and what's been successful to me. So let's get to it. All right, first off, fellas, my first bait that I like to go to throw for big bass and target big bass that are going to be sitting on steep ledges that are close to shore, that are looking to pick off those big baits that are starting, whatever place you're in, they're going to be looking for bigger food. They want to eat. They're hungry, right? So what I'm going to start throwing first, and what I'm going to throw, everybody likes to throw A-rigs. I love throwing spinnerbaits too and all that, but like I said, I like catching big fish, and I fish on a budget, and I love an A-rig, but an A-rig is very expensive. So if we want to dumb it down a little and still catch big fish and not pay, a super amount of money, the first bait that I like to go to and throw is a scrounge your head style bait, a tremor style bait. These particular ones here are made from Jackal fishing, tremor shad, scrounge your head. And obviously there's other baits that you can use. There's plenty other companies that make a scrounger head. I like the Jackal fishing. I like their tremor shad. You see how loose that is? You see that way that moves? It looks just like that in the water. When you're moving this is what it looks like in the water. I mean, to me, that's delicious, right? I mean, I would eat that. So, and up here we got white perch, we got LY herrings and all that kind of stuff. So we want to try to match the LY herring as best we can. Keep them white, keep them bold. That's what I do. When I'm using moving baits, I like to keep them shad patterns, whites and all that. When I'm using something like a jig or whatever, obviously we'll go with your peanut butter and jellies and that kind of stuff. So that being said, the first bait I'm going to throw is the tremor shad, the Jackal tremor shad. I love it. It's got the side-to-side wobble, just like a rattle trap would, tight side-to-side wobble with the secondary action of a tail movement. So, and then obviously you go with your color for that third, punch. So it's got, it's got the head wobble, it's got the tail wobble, and you can get it down there. You can get down there and, you reel it in, you feel it, just keep it low, stop it, let it hit the bottom, come back up a little bit. But great bait. I mean, obviously it works all year round. If you got a lot of grass, you're not going to want to throw this in the summer and stuff with a lot of grass. But when you're coming out of winter, that's what we're talking about. This is a big fish killer. My favorite bait to go for big fish. I'll also talk about this bait again, just this bait, because I have one that I go down to even 4 inches, 3 inches, and it's from Fish Arrow. It's a lure from Fish Arrow, and that I use in the wintertime. And I mean, killer bait in the wintertime, killer. But we talk about that in another episode, all right? So let's move on to the next bait. First bait I like to go with is this tremor shad, especially if I don't see fish actively feeding on top of the water and I don't see active bait. And if I see birds, I'll still throw this. If I see birds and that kind of stuff, I'm gonna go probably with a spinnerbait style bait, just because that means there's bait fish out. The fish are showing themselves. The birds are up there, they see them, so they're a little bit shallower. This is something more I'm gonna work on channels, deep drop-offs, and ledges and stuff like that. But killer bait for big fish. You can go mid-size. I go big size, but mid-size works. They're not chewing on the big size. And like I said, in the winter, I'll go down even smaller. Killer, wintertime. So, next bait I like to talk about is everybody likes a bladed jig. I'll throw a bladed jig. I'll throw anything from a chatterbait to Terminator shutterbait, which is gonna have a little bit more lift, but it has a lot more erratic action than a chatterbait. Your standard chatterbait is a little bit tighter unless you get the freestyle chatterbait that doesn't have the snap swivel, kind of has the wire twist on it, with that kind of line tie on it. But the Terminator shutterbait has got just incredible wobble, erratic motion, and really entices big fish, especially when they want to feed and they want to eat. This is going to get their attention. The Terminator Shutterbait. Okay, you can work it a lot slower, very versatile in the submerged levels. You with a chatterbait, you slow down, sometimes the blade stops kicking, or you get a little too low and you start catching the bottom. This one, you can slow it down, and because of this blade being so big, it creates lift, so you can manipulate and really use the bait to your advantage in keeping it in different water columns. All right, so that's my second bait that I like coming out of winter. And generally, I'm going to be doing this when I do see bait fish, or it's a little shallow. It is a little bit of a shallower lake. But if I see some kind of birds, I see something out there that's going to give me an indication that there is fish biting and all of that, right? My next one is a swim jig. Now, my swim jig is if it's like, you got nothing. You're really not picking up nothing. You're getting nothing. You don't see nothing on your electronics. And me, like I said, I'm budget. I have electronics, not the greatest electronics. And don't get me wrong, I was doing all this big fishing, a lot of this big fishing stuff without electronics. If you see some of my biggest bass on my videos, there's no electronics on my boat, okay? I just, from experience, bass logs, that kind of stuff, they have a pattern. There's a pattern. You just need to find a pattern, okay? That's it. So anyway, back to the situation with the swim jig. I'm gonna throw the swim jig because I can just slow roll it, creep it ever so slowly. And when they're not biting and it's a big meal, just slowly. Obviously, I like weed guard. You got a weed guard so you can hit trees on the bottom, logs, really slow, That's when I'm not getting nothing, and I still want to have somewhat of a decent presentation. I'm not throwing a Huddleston or something, which I could be, but like I said, you're spending a lot of money for that Huddleston. So if you want to keep it in that budget range, you go swim jig. Plenty of swim jigs out there. You can go any swim jig you want to go with. All right, and then my next killer bait, and everybody knows the killer bait. The bait is a spinner bait. Everybody loves a spinner bait. Spinner bite is great. You can't go wrong with a spinner bait. But when do you throw it? Do you throw it when you feel like, oh man, this is beautiful out? No, I don't. You might. I don't. I only throw this bait if, and it could be a little bit of flash, bold. I prefer bold. I will tell you this. A lot of people say flash, like you can throw an A-rig. They want a little bit of flash, goes a little better, a long ways. But I'll tell you what, when I get a bit of a bold color, even tandem, maybe a white and a fluorescent blade, maybe a flash and some fluorescent, but I get a bold color involved, I always catch my biggest fish on the bold color, okay? Always have. And when I'm gonna throw the spinnerbait, I'm gonna throw the spinnerbait when I have situations like this. If I have no wind and I have some clouds, I'll throw the spinnerbait because I have a variable. I got cloud cover, I got that, it's gonna bring bait fish up to the surface. All right, fellas, sorry about that. A buddy of mine was walking by, happened to see me and stopped by and said hello. Old fishing legend. Back to what I was talking about, throwing the spinnerbait. When I'm going to throw the spinnerbait, I was saying I'm going to throw the spinnerbait when I got a variable. If I have no wind, but I have cloud cover, I'm going to throw it. Because cloud cover, like I said, will bring the baits to the surface. And I was saying that I like bold colors. I love bold spinnerbaits. I love a white, all white, A lot of people, white, yes, I like white. Because I like to, if it's a moving bait, like I said, moving baits, I'm staying white, I'm staying shad pattern. I'm going to try to match the hatch as much as possible, and I might throw in a little bit of something just to pop it. So, and also with the spinner baits, you got heavy ones, bigger ones, and sometimes I like going really big. That fluorescent yellow one that I have is from Little Hustler, and it's actually a northern pike spinner bait. And there's other spinnerbaits that I like to use. The Booyah Glow spinnerbait, which is, you know, comes in all white or white and fluorescent, you know, bright bold colors. And then I got this new Jackal Dune spinnerbait, and that thing was on back order for a while last year. I got that. It's a great spinnerbait, heavy spinnerbait, big blades, nice. It hasn't got any rust at all on it at all. You know how lures rust over time being used and this and that. It's great. It's a great product, great material. But anyway, that being said, those are my favorite baits that I'm gonna go and start throwing when to target bigger fish. You know, I could throw a jerk bait and this and that, but I know I'm gonna catch, you know, 2-pounders here and there and yada yada yada. That's fine. That's fun if I fished all day and haven't caught anything. But when I'm really just trying to target quality fish, a good fish, because it's more fun to me, I'm gonna go with the tremor shad, the Jenko Fishing tremor shad, or a scrounger head style bait, and that's what I'm gonna cover down low. I'm gonna fish a bladed jig, and that's gonna cover my upper half water. I'm gonna fish my spinnerbaits anytime I have wind on the water, ripples. Anytime I have ripples during this year, I'm throwing a spinnerbait. I'm gonna throw it first. That is the very first thing I'm probably going to throw, unless I'm near a deep ledge or a steep drop off or something like that. Other than that, if there is any ripple on the water, sunny, cloudy, I'm throwing a spinnerbait. I want it to look like a bait ball, and that's why that A-rig is killer and it's crazy and everything else. But boy, losing $25 on your second cast because you're all excited about an A-rig, for me, it just doesn't feel good. So, you know, throwing a spinnerbait feels a lot better. And if you want to throw a big spinnerbait and get as close as you can to an A-rig, throw the big spinnerbait. The way you can change the spinnerbait and make it, you know, I don't like to just reel the spinnerbait in. I'll reel it in sometimes and just reel it straight through, and just sometimes fish like to bite that. But what I'll do is I'll stop it. I'll reel it and stop and just let that bait fall. And when that's falling through the water, it does this little 360. You know how spinnerbait looks when it's falling through the water, and the things start clacking and the blades start hitting each other, and boom, that reaction bite happens. Or right when you start reeling it again, boom, they're on it. So anyway, those are the baits that I like to throw. I like to throw my spinnerbait, I like to throw my scrounger head, I like to throw my bladed jig, and I like to throw my swim jig. Swim jig when there's no bites at all. When I see bait fish and everything, I'm going spinnerbait or bladed jig. And when I'm on a deep drop off and deep ledges that are close to the shoreline, like close drop offs to the shoreline, I'm throwing my scrounger head. And whew, I do work. It just works for me. So, you know, I hope you like the video. Like and subscribe. You know, come for the ride. We're gonna be fishing every week, you know, so let's get it done. Boom!